You're listening to episode 17 of the Inspired Entrepreneur's Guide podcast. Hey everybody, this is Darlene, the host of the Inspired Entrepreneur's Guide, the podcast that encourages you to stop dreaming and start doing. Welcome to the show. In this week's podcast series, I get to speak with someone in a very similar industry as myself, so it was pretty exciting. I speak with a digital media virtual assistant who started her business about 2 years ago, and she started it part-time and eventually decided to take a leap of faith and move to a full-time virtual assistant business. In this episode, we speak about her journey. She's also a new mom, has a newborn baby, 2-month-old baby at home. So we talk about balancing work and being a mom and so much more. This week's guest is Julienne Desjardins of Julienne Desjardins Digital Marketing and Virtual Assistant Services. Welcome, Julienne Desjardins, to the podcast.
Hey, thanks so much for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. And did I do okay with your name?
Yeah.
Perfect. Well, welcome to the show. I'm excited to talk to a fellow virtual assistant, especially one in the same realm as I am. So it's super fun to have this chat with you.
Yeah, me too. I think so too.
Awesome. Can you take a moment to tell me a little bit more about your business and why you started?
Yeah, well, I started it kind of was an interesting thing. I come from nonprofit administration. It's what my master's focused on. It's what my previous life's work focused on. And so I switched to a new position at a different organization, and I had all these other interesting, cool tasks to do, but some of the communication stuff that I was doing before, I was overseeing those things and not directly creating deliverables, right? Newsletter, social media, that kind of thing. So I started VAing just on the weekends because I missed it. And my husband and I were working really hard to pay off student loans, and we thought, all right, this is cool, a little bit extra money, and I get to do this thing I miss. And about a year later, I had too much demand, and so I had to either close up shop or jump in totally. I was kind of at that pivotal point that a lot of people get to, and so I jumped, and I get to do work that I love doing every day with, clients that I choose to work with that I love and I believe in. So it really is just unreal how cool it is.
Awesome. So I have a follow-up question to that. So you chose to jump into self-employment. Mm-hmm. And we know as business owners, that's not always income that is, it's not like a job where okay, every 2 weeks I'm having this amount. What made you decide I'm jumping in and I'm not going to realize, because business it can be up and down and shaky versus a job where it's, pretty straightforward. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So how did you decide that, and what made you decide I am going to jump full-fledged into the business? Yeah,
I think that it's one of those, when people say, how'd you know you were in love? And they say, when you know. I think that the leap point has a little bit of magic in it. It's a little bit of when you know. But I think it has a lot of prep. And so it had been a full year that I had been, nights and weekends VAing. So I knew that I had clients, and I knew that I had a wait list lined up that I could fill the rest of my time. As I mentioned, my husband and I had succeeded in getting out of debt, so we had our outgo was much smaller. So, a growth period, my family could handle that at that time. So it was a lot of prep, like I said beforehand. Would I call it a mistake? I don't know. But one lesson I learned, I would say, is about 6 months after going full time, I switched to a retainer model from a one-off model, which really fixed a lot of things in my business.
Right. A lot of that guessing.
Yeah. I'm passionate about mixing things up, for lack of a better word. So I love doing one-offs with people where it's 5 or 10 hours and I create an automated workflow for you in MailChimp, and then you are able to, to press on. I think it is affordable for a lot of solopreneurs. I like doing it. It mixes things up. So I still have some room to do that, but having retainers, as you said, kind of keeps that steady income flow. I know what I can expect. My family can budget around that. And I still get these pretty cool, one-time projects come in when I have space. So for me, it's just the perfect mix.
Awesome. You said one challenge or one kind of mistake, not really a mistake. It was just a learning experience. But what has been the most difficult thing about jumping into self-employment?
I always say the scary stuff, like stuff that is, the government is usually involved in that stuff. So, when I started my business, I just used my name. And, so where I am, I didn't have to file anything different or whatever. And, some people that, that they're operating under a different business name, and then they find out they have to go get a DBA, right? So, I think things like that. Do I have to collect sales tax on my digital products? When are my quarterlies due? That stuff that it's, it's not insurmountable, but it's a lot of little things to know. And it really, I think a lot of people would agree that owning a small business is a huge exercise in personal development, right? You become the best version of yourself. You have to be the most organized, the most, you have to dig up information, right? Like the most research-based, that kind of stuff. So that has been, challenging. It's been difficult to kind of make sure I'm doing everything correctly and seek out the CPAs and the lawyers and, the kind of professional help that you need to be sure you're, rocking it.
Exactly. And it's stressful. And I'm glad you pointed out that, seeking out the professional help, because it's not something to be scared of. That's what they're there for. Mm-hmm. And to reach out and know who to ask those questions of and to get help is totally fine.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah. I think that a lot of us probably would say that, you come from the corporate world where you're supposed to have the answers. And, there probably is a structure where you have attorneys or you have CPAs, in your business, and other people kind of how the sauce is made behind the scenes. You don't always get to see every little piece. And like you said, it's just learning how to reach out and learning that it's actually the right thing. It's not a failure or a shortcoming to bring people into your world that, do this particular thing better.
Exactly. And also, before I move on, it's also very important before you reach out to those people to actually do research on whom you're contacting. Mm-hmm. So make a point there, because it's not a matter of picking someone in the phone book anymore. I mean, you can, but it's probably not best practice.
I got home the other day. There was a phone book on my porch, speaking of which. I was really surprised. I thought, people use Google.
I know. I don't even think the yellow pages on the web even are used anymore. So
it is so funny. Yeah, due diligence. I think that really plays into I always kind of say, like, I had to become the CEO I'd want to hire, because, being sure that you don't bring on a dud is kind of a funny way to say it, but it's true. Just kind of doing all of those little pieces of research and due diligence is crucial, because it's all on you.
Absolutely. So I want to move away from the scary stuff a little bit and talk about the best stuff. What's been the best thing about becoming a virtual assistant and working from home?
Oh, gosh. Well, I think pajamas is good. I wouldn't say it's the best, but I would lie. I live in Buffalo, so, snowstorms, I get to stay home. That's nice. But for me, the best thing is like a recent change. I had a baby 2 months ago.
Okay.
So I am, home with him, and I don't miss anything. When he started smiling, I was here, and he's super, super long and he outgrows his clothes every 5 minutes. And so I'm here to like see him change, and I get to, he lays down for a nap and I go to my office and I work, and it's just such a blessed life. It's unbelievable.
This topic is super interesting to me because eventually I will be in that same spot. So eventually I will be there. So this question is kind of self-serving. What was it like that first month working from home and having newborn? And I'm just so scared of sleep deprivation. So what was that like, and how did you balance that?
Well, I had a couple of cheats. First of all, my kid came out of the womb sleeping 4 and 5 hour stretches at night. So I can't complain because I do get some rest. But the first month actually, and this is to go back to what's the best thing, I took a month maternity leave, and so I was able to sustain that in my business. My clients, we scheduled social media posts ahead and, did all this stuff. My husband also took a month off. So it was just this blissful, it was around Christmas and here we are just holed up in our house with our baby. It was just really nice. So I've been back, for a month, and I have some help. I have childcare. So my dad watches him 2 days a week, so I get some better flow days in then. And I think a huge thing for me has been to kind of release expectations. He is a living, breathing human, right? He's not this thing I can put on a schedule. So some days there is really, it kind of sounds kind of like a cheap answer, but there's not a typical day, right? I kind of know when he's going to take a nap. But some days he doesn't, or it's shorter. And so I have to be willing to just I have a bank of tasks that are quick, stuff that I can do, with one hand while I'm bouncing a baby or something. And, like I said, just release that expectation that I can't expect to hit flow on the days when he and I are home alone, and then everything goes smoother. I still feel accomplished if I have those, short-term, those most important tasks that I can do in quick, few minutes of time. And so I feel accomplished, and he gets a mom that's fully there when she's there. So that would be my biggest piece of advice.
What about taking care of you? How do you fit that in?
Oh boy.
Yeah.
What do I do? Well, I have done the quintessential mother thing of escaping to Target, going home with bags of stuff and some Starbucks. I think for me, I am an introvert, so working at home is the perfect thing. I'm in my jammies. I only engage with people and, clients that I mesh really well with. And I have been surprised since he came how much I have actually longed to leave a little bit, So those quick trips to Target are surprising for me. They're new, but that has been nice. Sometimes my husband, he comes home from work and he wants to spend time with the baby anyway. So, they go off and read a book or play or whatever. And I just, sit by myself, watch, an episode of Gilmore Girls or something on Netflix and just, veg out. Is that a term? Just don't make myself think about anything, even if it's 10 or 15 minutes. That really feels refreshing to me, but it's a challenge. Yeah.
One more, just because I wrote this down. So you said that, sometimes when baby's napping, that's when you'll sneak in a item. And how they say, you nap when baby naps.
Good luck.
Do you ever do that?
You know what? Sometimes I have, a couple days a week, maybe I do real quick. Sometimes you're I find, at least, it means nothing because everyone's experience will be different, but I find by the time he's asleep, I'm hungry or I really want my cup of coffee. So I'm thank God, yes. And I'm running for the hills, So,
right. That's funny.
To be perfectly frank.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think sometimes if he had a rough night and he was up a few times and stuff, we've, conked out together. And I think that's the beauty of it is there's not a lot of pressure. You've built a business that works for you. And so you can figure out how to, make that work.
I said last one, but this is actually going to lead up to the virtual assistant. I want to talk about virtual assistants. When, so you worked for a year, obviously part of that you knew baby was coming. Did you prepare well, obviously you did, but was it something where you went back and forth on when I should tell clients and break that news to them? And was it something you feared, or were you excited about it? Because I know some people might have that presence of mind where, like, when they're working for someone, oh my God, if I tell them I'm going to get fired. What's the thought process like when you're working on your own business?
So interesting. So a lot of my clients are female solopreneurs who are moms. So my ICA lends itself, creates a situation where it was okay. I went to everyone with a plan. I got really super clear because a lot of people, as I said, are retainers. So I knew the baby is expected here. This is when your retainer will shut off. This is what we're going to do. I took weeks to clarify that and to really hash through it and talk with my, biz BFFs and my husband. And does this make sense? And so I wrote everybody with a huge plan, and I didn't ask them to give me anything, right? I didn't ask them to brainstorm with me or whatever. For me, that worked. I just felt like because I was asking something from them, right? To shut off for a month. And we did, like I said, do a lot of planning ahead, and that was included in my plan, was like, these are the tasks that I do regularly for you that we can take care of by, November 30th or whatever. So that was one aspect. I had one contract that was with a big company, like household name big. And I hate to say this, but I think I did lose it because of the baby. I never really did anything about it, but it was, I said, hey, I'm going to need to take some time off. What's the process? I need to talk to somebody about that. And I was let go with no reasoning after that. And the project was such that there were very clear metrics. And so I knew that I was performing and meeting those metrics. There was no question about it. And I asked for some clarification and I didn't get it. So that, to me, the timing just felt so strange. It had been 2 years I had been with them, right, since the beginning of the VA stuff. So that was very strange because that felt very corporate, and it is corporate, right? So there was this juxtaposition of, I've built this thing that works really beautifully when it's this B2B relationship with other women and the power that's there. And then there is this corporate thing that is okay and has a place in the world, but I just want to step away from that and like do this other thing. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I experienced both of it, and I think that's why I just have such a sense of gratitude about what, men and women, kind of digital marketers, are creating in the world. It's awesome.
Absolutely. And I find it interesting is that, it's so cliche when you say it, when one door closes, another one opens. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure, and I could be assuming, but it's based on what I've known already about this conversation, is once that door closed on the corporation, you probably picked up a few handfuls of your ideal client since then. So.
I did, and I didn't have a retainer system set up. So that was a big chunk of my money, and I was suddenly sitting here like, oh crap, what do I do? And I had been resistant to retainers before because I liked the idea of that one-off process, as I said. So it really has, what I didn't realize is how much it would free me up. It was going to free me up that I didn't have to spend a ton of time marketing. So now that time is going toward creating digital products and blogging and, doing other stuff that's exciting in my business. So it really, you're right, I didn't think of it like that until you say it now, but it was a huge, just 180 for me.
So that kind of is a lesson of being a virtual assistant, but I want to dive more specifically into that niche of virtual assisting. So what has been the biggest lesson you've learned as a virtual assistant? And you have an e-course on starting a VA business. So I kind of want to link it to that. Like maybe what's that biggest lesson and that the biggest takeaway from your life, and also why you decided then to create a course.
Yeah.
I just threw that one in there.
Well, I think a big lesson for me, I don't know if it's the biggest, because in 5 minutes I'll tell you I had a bigger one, but a big one was like this idea of designing this business of your dreams. Like, you're the boss, you get to do what you want. That doesn't mean, that everything's pretty, right? You have to still file your taxes and figure all that stuff out. But the good stuff is overwhelming the not so fun stuff most days. And it's not a cliche. It's just real. If you are diligent and you work really hard, it's not always, it's not always pretty, but it's great most of the time. So I found that as I've been building my business, I've been getting a ton of emails from aspiring VAs who are asking the same question and the same question and the same question. And so I thought, okay, well, I have to start answering those systematically. And I've done some of that on the blog, what time tracker to use, what scheduler tool to, that kind of stuff. I've been doing that. But then, I think that a lot of business builders would agree that at some point there is, you should be paid for your knowledge. You know what I mean? And I have had some hiccups and learned some lessons. And so I assembled that knowledge, and, if people that find it valuable can purchase it, you know what I mean? And get access to me in a deeper way. And that gives me the opportunity. There's, a comment section inside the course, and I can be in there and talk to people, and it keeps it sustainable for me, because I love talking to people that want to get that, freedom.
Right. Awesome. Well, I want to now switch to, and I have another final question. I'm going to throw it in a moment,
okay.
But the podcast itself is all about encouraging people to follow their dreams, and maybe someone that's listening to this episode wants to be a virtual assistant.
Mm-hmm. Maybe
that person's struggling to take a leap into the world of self-employment. And I loved how you said before that taking that leap does include a bit of magic.
Mm-hmm.
But what words or advice would you like to share to someone that's struggling to just jump?
Mm-hmm. I think there's freedom in risk taking. It's counterintuitive, right? I think a lot of us, we could not, when asked in first grade what you want to be when you grow up, have said this. The words didn't exist, the job didn't exist, So you are forging a new path, and sometimes it's difficult because your friends and your family might not understand, and you might not have a clear picture of what that's going to look like. But I love, Marie Forleo says that clarity comes from engagement. And as you engage, things will get clearer and solidify themselves. And you'll be able, to build a business that works for you. I think a huge part of that is just getting started. Like you said, like to do the leap, you just have to one day just decide I'm going to leap. I think it's the same thing with, am I going to exercise, or am I going to
right.
save money? You just have to start at some point. And why not today?
Right. Absolutely. Awesome. Well, my final question, I just thought of it, is I like to wrap podcasts into the person I'm speaking to, my guest's area of expertise. And in this second season of my podcast, I'm kind of focusing on marketing. So being that you're a digital marketing virtual assistant, what's one piece of advice, or maybe your favorite digital media marketing tool that the people can just take away from this podcast and start using as soon as they are done?
I think automation, I think, is huge. And one thing that I hear a lot, is I can't get a newsletter out, right? I'm overwhelmed with that. And so I think definitely what you could start with is working on a welcome sequence, a 3 email series that is going to auto kick out to your people so that they hear from you on a regular basis. That's going to help you take some of the pressure off of that, oops, it's newsletter day. What do I write? And that scramble.
Wait, I still do that.
Don't we all some days? But I think that really, and I'm still perfecting this, but I think that is huge. I just love the idea of using automating tools to give myself some buffer time. And that's what I feel like the welcome sequence does, is it keeps you in the forefront of your audience's mind, but it gives you a little bit of a window to keep creating new content.
Absolutely. Do you have a favorite email marketing program to use?
Well, right now I am on MailChimp. I think I'm going to be switching to ConvertKit. I'm in the research stage. But the reason I love MailChimp is that, you can have 2,000 subscribers on your list for free, which is the best, right? The most that you get for free.
Yeah, and I was going to say, especially for those starting out, because you probably have a non-existent email list. So it gives you a lot of room to grow in the beginning.
For me, the reason why I'm considering switching is, ConvertKit has some landing pages and some different, more robust tools. It's just different. So that's kind of, I'm there. But MailChimp is awesome, I think, to jump in. Mad Mini is not bad, right? But you can only have 500 for free, I think. So just a little bit less of a growth opportunity for you.
Well, this has been a fun chat. Yeah. I'm sure. I know that I could have a bazillion more questions, but for the sake of time, I'm going to wrap it up here. It's been joyful, and before I do wrap it up, take a moment or two to tell people a little bit more about where they can find you and your e-course and connect with you on the web.
Yeah, my website is juliendesjardins.com. I'm sure you can link to that in the notes. Yes. On Twitter and Instagram, I'm at JULMASDES, JewelMassDes. And my course is launched now. There is information on my site all about that, so you'll see that if you go visit.
Awesome, and I will definitely link your website to the show notes, because people are probably listening going, well, wait, how do I spell that?
I know. Isn't it? People ask me all the time if I'm French, but I'm not. I just married a French guy, and my mom just liked the name, so it's just crazy.
I hear you. My last name's Gonzalez, and people automatically say, oh, you're Spanish or Hispanic? I'm like, no, it's by marriage.
No, right? It's such a problem.
Yeah. Hey, if that's our only problem, I think we're doing quite well.
Sure. Yeah. All right.
Well, thank you so much for chatting with me today. It's been a great chat.
Yeah, same to you. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Julienne, for being a guest on this podcast. You can learn more about Julienne by going to my website, dvpodcasts.com/inspired, and look for episode 17's show notes. Well, that does it for this episode. Before I close out the show, I wanted to remind you that you can connect with me. You can connect with me on Twitter at Darlene Victoria, as well as send me an email with feedback, questions, or an inquiry to be a guest to darlene@darlenevictoria.com. And you can subscribe to the podcast so you never, ever miss an episode. Head on over to dvpodcasts.com. Look for subscribe in the navigation, and you can find all of the wonderful ways you can subscribe to the podcast. Well, that does it for this episode. I will be back next month with brand new episodes. Until then, remember, be inspired by the most important person in your life, you. This is Darlene Victoria, signing out.